There once was a queen who could turn anything she touched into gold. Her people called her the Queen of Coins. She ruled over a kingdom where sunlight never faded, where every wall shimmered, every crown glittered, and every dream seemed reachable. But in her eyes, there was always a shadow, the kind that wealth cannot brighten. They say she was born poor, a child of dust and hunger who once begged at the gates of other people's castles. When she was granted the power to turn what she touched into gold, she thought it was salvation. Every coin she created was proof that she would never suffer again. Every shimmering surface was a promise that she would never be small again. At first, her people rejoiced. Roads were paved in gold. Bread was sold for copper, then silver, then gold, until the poor no longer starved. They simply vanished. Gold filled every corner of the kingdom, but no one could eat it. No one could sleep on it. The wealth that once promised to save them slowly began to suffocate them. The queen watched from her throne as her subjects bowed lower and lower, not in reverence, but in exhaustion. She smiled still, convincing herself that this was power, that this was control. But every night, when the candles burned down, she could hear whispers through the palace walls. Whispers that said, "She has everything, yet nothing." Her advisors begged her to stop creating, to rest, to leave the palace and see what her kingdom had become. But she couldn't. The need to create more gold was like breathing. Every time she saw something pure, a flower, a tear, a lover's hand, she had to touch it, to perfect it. Because in her mind, perfection was value, and value meant worth. Then one night, she dreamed of her mother, a face long forgotten, now wrapped in light and sorrow. In the dream, her mother asked, "What have you made, my daughter?" The queen answered proudly, "A kingdom that will never fall." Her mother only smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Then why does it feel so empty?" The queen woke with a start, her hands trembling. For the first time in years, she felt fear. The fear of losing what she already had, and the fear of realizing it might all mean nothing. She walked through the palace halls. Everything glowed faintly in the moonlight, her crown, her walls, her servants' eyes, but nothing was alive. The sound of her footsteps echoed, sharp and hollow. She entered the royal garden, once the heart of her kingdom. Now the flowers were stiff, their petals frozen mid-bloom, gilded by her touch. She tried to remember their scent, but her memory failed her. It had been too long. Her hand brushed against one final rose. For a moment, she thought she could still feel its softness, but then it turned to gold, and the last bit of color in her garden vanished. Something inside her broke. The gold was everywhere, but it couldn't hide her reflection. Every polished surface showed her the same thing, a woman with empty eyes, trapped in the thing she once worshipped. The queen began to laugh. Softly at first, then louder, until it echoed through the halls. Her laughter turned to a sob. "If gold is worth everything," she said to herself, "then why does it cost so much?" She walked to the grand mirror in her chamber, a mirror she had avoided for years. In its reflection, she saw herself surrounded by her creations, radiant and untouchable. But as she reached out to touch the glass, something strange happened. The mirror didn't reflect her anymore. Instead, she saw her younger self, barefoot in the dirt, smiling with nothing but a handful of wildflowers. Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed her hand to the glass, whispering, "Please, just one more moment of that." The mirror cracked. Gold bled through the fractures. The walls began to shimmer violently, consuming everything around her. And then silence. When the people came to the palace the next morning, they found her throne room sealed in a solid block of gold. Inside, frozen like a statue, sat the queen, her face serene, almost peaceful. They say if you visit the ruins of her castle, you can still hear her voice echoing through the corridors. Not in pain, not in pride, but in regret. Whispering, "I turned everything I loved into gold. And in the end, it turned me into nothing. And so the legend of the Queen of Coins became a warning that wealth without meaning is a curse, that perfection without heart is emptiness, and that the ones who chase gold too far often forget what they were trying to buy in the first place. Because some treasures cannot be touched, some must simply be felt before they disappear forever.